Begin today the Gemara towards the bottom of Lamed Amud Beis, 6 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Siman. The Gemara before brought the pasuk Midvar Sheket Tirchak, that one should stay away from saying a lie. So the Gemara here will bring a few different drashes that are learned from this pasuk. I'm actually looking before. I don't remember if the Gemara actually brought this very pasuk before, but it's related to the discussion before about judges and so on. Okay, Siman, the Siman of what we're going to learn here is Sanigrain, Bur, Gzelas, Mirma. Tolan Rabbanon, so we learned in the Braisa. Minayin Ladayin, from where do we know regarding a judge? Shalayasa Sanigrain Ledvarav. You shouldn't advocate the verdict that he wants to say. What this means is, in a case where a judge has an idea of a verdict, but he's not 100% sure about it, but because he already said his word, so then he comes and convinces people that he's right, even if he's not 100% sure that he's right.
So
one is not allowed to do this.
His own opinion?
He's advocating his verdict, even when he's not 100% sure.
But that's before you give the final...
Yes. Talmud Laimar, so the pasuk says, Midvar Sheket Tirchak. You have to stay away from a lie, meaning not only when it's clearly a falsehood, even something which you're not 100% sure about, don't advocate it. Uminayin, and another thing we learn from this pasuk, from where do we know the dayan? Shulayeshev Talmud Bor Lefonav. A judge should not have a student which is an ignoramus that sits in front of him and he discusses with him the subject of the Din Torah. And this is a problem because he's discussing with him and he may lead him to wrong conclusions. Talmud Laima, the pasuk says, Midvar Sheker Tirchak. From something that could lead to a lie, stay away. A third thing that we learn from here, the Bachir says, a judge that knows that he has a colleague, but he's a robber. Or a witness that knows of a friend, but that may also know the same testimony, but he's a robber. Now, to be a judge or to be a witness, if you're a robber, then you're puzzled to do this. So, from where do we know that don't even say with them the testimony or don't be a judge together with them? Talmud Laima, the pasuk says, Midvar Sheker Tirchak, that you should stay away from falsehood because you're causing that it should be paskined based on the other witness or the Din Torah with the judge, which is not supposed to paskin. Okay, another halacha we learn, Minayin Ladayin Sheyidei Bedin Shehu Merumeh Shelo Yoimar, in a case where a judge knows that this is a fraudulent verdict. It's based maybe on what witnesses said, and it seems like you have what to stand on, but he has a sense that there's something that's fraudulent about this. So Shelo Yoimar, the judge shouldn't say to himself, Hoyo v'aydim. There are witnesses that testified about this. So I will cut and I will give the verdict. Let the chain hang around the neck of these Eidim. It's their fault, it's their problem, I'm just going to go by their word. So judge can't do that. If he has a sense that there's something wrong, he has to make a further investigation, and only then could he paskin, or he just has to recuse himself from the whole case. Talmud Laimar, so the pasuk says, Midvar Sheker Tirchak, stay away from something that leads to falsehood. Okay, now here the Gemara will discuss additional things that are learned from Midvar Sheker, and it brings a Siman Tlasa Talmud, 3 points about a student, Utlas Balichayv, 3 points about the Balchayv, and then Smartut, Shemeya, Umatim. Says the Gemara, Minayin Talmud Sheyesh Lifnei Rabbi. How do I know that a case of a student that's sitting in front of his teacher in a Din Torah, and he sees something that is meritorious for the poor individual that's in this Din Torah, and chayv to the usher, where he sees that the rich man is really wrong, and his teacher, which is the one that is the judge in this Din Torah, is about to give a verdict which is the opposite. So Minayim, from where do we know, Shelo Yishtek, that this student sitting there should not be quiet. It may be very hard for him to speak up. It's very intimidating.
As a student of the judge.
Student of the judge. Now, it might be intimidating for him to speak up because his teacher is saying one way, and it's speaking up against a rich man, but nevertheless, he should not be quiet. So the pasuk says, Midvar Sheker Tirchak, stay away from something which is false. If you see something that you know that you can correct it, you have to speak up. Similar thing we learn out about a student. From where do we know a student that sees that his teacher is making a mistake in the ruling? He shouldn't say, let me wait until my teacher will finish and he'll give his verdict. Then ve'esterenu, and then I will prove how he was wrong. Ve'evnenu mishali, and I will build back up the case as mine, and then it'll all be my ruling. Kedei sheyikra din al shmi, and then I'll have the credit for this psak din. He should stay away from a lie. If he sees that his teacher is going in the wrong direction, you should tell him in advance before he gives the psak din. A third thing about the student, from where do we know in a case where there's a student and his teacher tells him, you know about me, even if I would be paid off 100 maneh, I would not lie. And therefore I tell you as follows, that so-and-so owes me $100, but I only have one witness to testify for me. So I need a second witness to come to testify on my behalf so I can collect that money. So minayin, from where do we know? So the student should not come and testify with that one aid, even if the student knows that it's true, but he is saying something that he doesn't know about, so he can't combine to say this. So the pasuk says that he has to stay away from a lie. Even if he trusts his teacher is true, he shouldn't testify. But the Gemara asks in this case, you're deducing this only from what the pasuk says, that stay away from something that could lead to falsehood. This person is saying an outright lie. If he is coming and joining and saying a testimony that I know this when he doesn't, so then it's an outright lie. The Torah clearly says, you may not say false testimony. So Ella, therefore the Gemara amends this case and says, Kogoin, the case that we're learning out from Midvar Sheket Tirchak would be, the Amalei, the teacher tells the student, Vadai Chatzade Isli. I definitely have one witness that will testify on my behalf, that this guy owes me money. Now, I'm not asking you to testify along with him, because that's a lie. But all I'm asking you is, V'sa ato kom hasam, you, my student, come and stand there, along with the other aide that testifies. But you don't have to speak anything. So you're not saying any lie out of your mouth. You're just standing there. What does he want to gain by this? So when that person sees that there's one person speaking and there's someone else standing there, it would seem to him that there's a second witness there. So that's going to cause him to admit that he owes me the money. So that would be enough for me. Nevertheless, even though the student is not saying a lie, he's not allowed to do this, to give this impression that he knows Eidus about this. He has to stay away from a falsehood, even just to give this impression. Okay, those are the three halachas regarding a student. Now, regarding a Baal Chayv, 3 points regarding a person that someone owes him money. From where do I know in a case where you are collecting $100 from someone, so you shouldn't say to yourself, I'll do as follows. I will make a claim double of what he owes me. I'll make a claim that he owes me 200. Why? What do I gain by this? Because then he's only going to admit to what he owes me, which is half. What happens when you admit to half? Anytime a person admits to half of a claim, you are a meide b'miktsas. You're admitting to part, and then you have to swear that the part that you're denying is true. So now he's going to be chayiv to swear. And now he's chayiv lishvur. He'll be chayiv to swear that the other half he doesn't have to pay. Now, what do I gain by the fact that he has to swear for me for the other half? Because now there's another halacha called gilgul shvur. Once a person is obligated to swear about one situation, you could now roll on him to swear about other things as well. And now I will roll on him, I'll obligate him to swear for me about other matters as well, which otherwise I couldn't get him to swear for me. Because it could be another matter which a person would not be obligated to swear for, in a case where a person would be a kaifer hakayel, where he's denying it all, or there's another halacha that any halacha regarding piece of land, real estate, there's no shvuah on this, but now I'll get him to swear for me for this case, and then I'll able to roll on him, I'll able to obligate him to swear for me for something else. You're not allowed to do this. Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says, Medvar Sheket Tirchak, do not do something that is connected to falsehood. Second case, from where do we know in a case where someone really is collecting from you just $100? But and he comes and he asks you, he claims that you owe him 200. It's double of what he owes you. So what would happen in such a case? So you come into the Bezdin and you're Moed b'miktzas. You admit what you owe him, and you deny the other half. And what happens then? You're going to have to swear for the part that you deny. So now the person doesn't, he wants to avoid having to swear for this. So what would the defendant do? He would say, I shouldn't say to himself, you know what I'll do? Achbarenu bebezdin. In the bezdin, I'll say, you're claiming I owe you $200, I don't owe you a penny. Now, once he denies all of it in bezdin, he's not going to have to swear at all. And then, but the fact is, I do owe him $100. Then outside bezdin, privately, I'll admit to him and I'll pay him $100. And again, the reason he's doing it is, wants to avoid having to swear in the bezdin. And then he won't roll on me also that I would have to swear for other subjects as well. So how do we know that one is not allowed to do this? You have to stay away from something connected to a lie. You can't say in bezdin, I don't owe you a penny, and then privately say, oh, I do owe you $100. A third case regarding a bachayv, minayin l'shleisha, shenoishim mana be'echad. How do we know if there are three people that somebody owes three of them together $100? So now it's three of them, but they don't have any witnesses. So what could they do? Shlayachad baldin. So they shouldn't say as follows. You know what? One of us will be a baldin. He'll be the litigant in the din Torah. Now the other two are going to make believe as if they're not parties in this din Torah, and they will be witnesses. And then they'll get their money that he owes them, the $100, and they'll divide it amongst them. The pasuk says, "Midvar sheker terchak." You have to stay away from a lie because they really are the balidinim, and therefore they cannot be eidim in this case. Now another case, menayin l'shnayim shabolidin. How do we know if there are two people that come to the bezdin? Echad lovish smartutin. One of the litigants is dressed in rags, and the echad lovish itztelis pas meyamana. The other one is dressed with very expensive clothing. So these two people come to the din Torah, it doesn't look equal at all, and you see that he is a chosh of a person, you get intimidated by him. So what do we do in such a case? We say to the person that's dressed very well, either lavish kamaisai, you have to dress down like him, dress in rags, or if not, give him clothing that should be like you, so it should be equal. The pasuk says, when the other person sees that you're dressed so fancy, it causes him to lose his highness. He feels very intimidated by this.
But where's the falsehood in there?
It leads to falsehood. It leads to falsehood, correct. Yeah. Right, so, but the commentaries do say about this that it's only if the difference between the way they are dressing is so obvious and it's so far and different. But if one is dressing a little bit better than the other, that doesn't matter. Now, the case was, when Balidinim would come in front of Rava Barav Huna, so Amalahu, he would say to them, Shlufu pazmukaichu, take off your expensive designer socks, or shoes they have there, footwear, some designer footwear, so it shouldn't come extra fancy. And then you can come to the din Torah. Another case, Menayin L'dayan. Sorry, Menayin, from where do we know it? For a judge, Shaloi Yishma Divri Baldin, he's not allowed to listen to the arguments of one of the litigants before his friend, the other litigant, comes to the bezdin. The pasuk says, "Midvar sheker terchak." You have to stay away from a lie. You listen to one, and the other is not there to challenge him, so that one could just say things that are not true. This is regarding the judge. Similar, it's also forbidden on behalf of the litigant himself. The baldin should not come and explain himself to the judge before his friend shows up to the din Torah. All learned from the same pasuk of midvar sheker terchak. Now, regarding this last case, Rav Kahana taught that where is this learned out from? It says in the pasuk miloi sisa. The continuation of the pasuk is leisisa shem hashav, which is going on the judge. The judge should not carry anything that leads to falsehood. And by accepting and listening to one of the litigants before the other one shows up, he causes falsehood. That's leisisa. He's carrying this. He's causing this. Or leisasi. It could also be read as leisasi, which is on the litigant himself. You don't present your case to the court before the other person shows up, causing this, that bezdin then should carry this falsehood through you saying it first. Now, there's a pasuk that says He doesn't do the right thing, the good thing amongst his people. What is this pasuk referring to? Rav Omar, so Rav says, it refers to a dinteira and zeh haba bar shah. What this refers to is when someone does not show up himself to a dinteira that he's involved in. Instead, he gives the rights over to someone else to present him in the dinteira, and he doesn't show up. So what's the power of attorney? So what's the problem with this? Because when you're giving the power of attorney to someone else, they don't have the rights to make any compromise. The best in the dinteira always is if it's possible to make a compromise. So if the person himself involved in the dinteira shows up, it's possible that there would be a compromise. So here, though, when you give over the power of attorney to someone else, then you're not making it. It's not going to be possible to make a compromise, and therefore that's a problem. Shmuel says a different case. The pasuk is referring to a person when there's a property where there are people that are arguing over its ownership. So it's a property that it's disputed, and this person comes along and says, I don't care about this argument. He goes and buys it, and he says, I'm strong enough, I'm tough enough, I'm going to fight for this property and just keep it for myself. Now, there's a dispute about it. Let the dispute first be settled. That's someone that's not acting right amongst his people. Okay, going back to the Mishnah now. In the Mishnah it says, this whole halacha of one that swears falsely that he doesn't know testimony is only regarding a person that is fit, that he could say this. So the Gemara says, what is this coming to exclude? The Mishnah before this already said a list of cases of people that can't testify, like a woman and so on. So what else is the Mishnah coming to exclude? Rav Papa says, melech. It means that this excludes a king. A king is the person that does not testify. It says that Rashi here brings the Mishnah that says lo imed, lo imeidenai. So a king does not have this chiyuv of the shvuah when he swears about this. Rav Yaakov says a different case, la fuke mesachik bekovye. It's coming to exclude a person that is playing with cards or with a dice, meaning a person that gambles. One that gambles, so midrabbana, rabbinically, he's pasal eidos. So he as well, if he swears falsely about a testimony that he would know, he's not chayiv for this because we wouldn't accept his testimony anyways. So the Gemara explains, the one that says that the Mishnah is coming to include a case of a person gambling, kol shkei melech, definitely regarding a king, that minat Torah, he cannot testify, he doesn't have to testify. But melech, the opinion that says that the Mishnah is excluding a king, but one that gambles, minat Torah, since he could testify, only the Rabbanan passed the Zaydos, so therefore this person that gambles, if he swears falsely about a testimony, he actually will be chayiv. Okay, but Ravacha, even though he's a gambler, but Ravacha Yaakov still holds it doesn't matter if it's midrabanan. The fact is that his testimony would have not been accepted. Doesn't matter what the reason is, but it wouldn't have been accepted anyways. And therefore, if he denies knowing this testimony, he's not chayiv for this. But in our case where a person is pasal midrabanan, even if his edus is not accepted, but because minat Torah he's kosher, if based on this edus the person wants to go and grab money from someone else, we don't take it away from him. So that edus actually has some kind of a power. Therefore, Rav Papa says he would still be chayiv. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, it said b'fnei bezdin. Vishaloi b'fnei bezdin chulu. So in the Mishnah, there was an argument between the Rab Meir and the Chachamim. According to Rab Meir, if a person is swearing falsely about this testimony himself, he said the shvu out of his own mouth, then it doesn't matter if he's in front of Bezdin or not in front of Bezdin. But if it was mipi acherim, he's not saying that I don't know that with a shvu. Others are saying to him that you swear, we want you to swear about this, and he accepted it from the mouth of others, then he'll only be chayiv if this happened in front of the Bezdin. That's Rav Meir. Chachamim, though, say that it always is only in the Bezdin. Only if he denies this edus inside the Bezdin, doesn't matter if he said the shvur or he's listening to the shvur from others that he's accepting, only in the Bezdin will he be chayiv. Says the Gemara b'mai kamiflagi. What is the basis of this argument? Amru Rabbana kamed Rav Papa. So the Rabbana, the students in front of Rav Papa, explain they're arguing in the following concept. B'day mina. When you learn out something from another case, do I then say that I learn out the halacha itself, but then I also say umina. I also apply the details, the way it is from where you're learning it out, you apply even the details as well. Or do I say, b'doy mina, I learn out the concept, the halacha from whatever source, But vayiki basra. But then exactly how it's applied, I don't take the details from the source that I learned it out from. I apply it here. In this case, according to the halachas that would apply here, which would be different than the source. This is what they're arguing about. And he explains, Rav Meir says, Doin mina umina, I learn out from a source, and I apply what is there in that source. From where are we learning out from? Okay, so what the Gemara here is going to be based on is, here we're talking about Shavuos Eidos, a person that's swearing about a testimony falsely that he doesn't know it. In the pasuk, when it speaks about the Shavuos Eidos, it clearly is speaking about a case where he did not say the shvuah falsely, but he listened to the bezdin that's having him swear for this, and he's just accepting that shvuah from the bezdin. So that's what the pasuk here clearly is speaking about. From where do we know that by the shvuah eidos, if the person himself swears falsely about this, that he would also be chayav a carbon? It's learned out from shvuah sapikodain. Shvuah sapikodain is a person that took a deposit for someone, and now the owner comes and claims it, and the person lies and says, I don't have this. And over there, the pasuk clearly says that the person swore himself falsely about it. So we learn that from Pikodin, as the Gemara explains here now. Mi Pikodin. So now Ma Pikodin, just like by the case of the deposit. Mujba mi piyatz mechayev, if he's swearing himself that he does not have this deposit, and it was a lie, he's going to be chayev for this. So hafedus, so too here regarding swearing about a testimony, Mujba mi piyatz mechayev, if he's swearing himself, will also be chayev. That's the source for when he swears himself. Now, according to Rab Meir, we add and we say umina. Now we apply also the way this is by Pekodin. We apply the detail here also regarding the Eidos. And we say as follows, Ma Pekodin. Just like by the case of Pekodin. Bein bebezdin, bein shaloi bebezdin. The yochayev for this false shvuah, whether this was inside a bezdin or even outside of the bezdin. That's what the pasuk there is talking about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. That no, in both cases, whether it's inside the bezin or outside the bezin, you would be chayiv. Af eidos, so to here by the eidos, bein bebezdin, bein shaloi bebezdin. Whether it was inside the bezin, whether it was outside the bezin, you would be chayiv for this. So therefore, Rab Meir says, if it's a shvuah mipia chayrim, which is the kind of shvuah that the pasuk is speaking about over here by shvuah eidos, that has to be only inside the bezdin. But if it's mipiatzma, if he's swearing himself, since we learned that from Pekodin, as Rashi brings the source, the pasuk, it's learned out, techta. Over here, we learn out completely from there that one would be chayiv even if it's outside the bezdin. Now, Rabbanan Sabri, however, Rabbanan's opinion is, doin mina. We learn from Pekodin, but v'oiki basra. Then we apply here, in the case of Eidos, we apply it the way the rules are regarding Shavuos Eidos, which is that it has to be in bezdin, always. And therefore we say as follows. That ma Pekodin mushma b'piyatz mechayev. Yes, I'm learning from Pekodin that when one swears himself, he would be chayev. Af edus mushma b'piyatz mechayev. So to by the edus, when a person swears falsely about a testimony himself, he would be chayev. But then I apply it to the rule that there is here by edus, and therefore va'oiki ba'asra, I apply it the way it is over here in the place that I'm learning out to, which is by edus, and I say ma mushba mipi achere. Just like here in the pasuk by Eidos, when it speaks about the bezdin that's having him swear, and he's just accepting. So then it's bebezdin in. He's chayiv only if it's in the bezdin. Shaloi bebezdin loy, and outside the bezdin he's potter. Af mushba mipiatzmai. So too when he's swearing himself, although we learned it out from Pekodin, but nevertheless I apply it the way it is here by Eidos, and I say bebezdin in shaloi bebezdin loy. In the bezdin he'll be chayiv, and outside the bezdin he will be potter. This is the way the rabbis, the students, explain this argument in front of Rav Papa. So Rav Papa reacted and he said to them, now, if everybody would agree that the source for this, that one that swears himself by the testimony, by Shavuos Eidos, would be learned from the case of Pekodin, so Gamrila Rabbanon, if the Rabbanon, the Chachamim would learn from there, nobody would argue that we learn from there, and we completely apply even the detail of where this shvuah is done, that it has to be, or could be even outside of the bezdin. We would completely learn it out from there. That's not the point that they're arguing about. To what extent you learn out from shvuah pekodin. So Elo Haina time of the Rabbanon. Why do the Rabbanon argue? The reason is because they don't learn out from there. According to the Rabbanan, it's not necessary to learn out this Gzeir Shava from there. They didn't have the tradition of this Gzeir Shava. The Maisula Bekavachayim. Rather, the Rabbanan say, how do I know when one swears falsely about a testimony? that even if it's not mepi achedim, even if it's not the bezdin that he's accepting that shvuah from, but even if he swears himself, from where do I know that he's going to be chayiv? It's simple. It's a kal v'chaimer. What's the kal v'chaimer? Uma mepi achedim chayiv, if in a case where the person didn't swear himself, but he's just listening to the bezdin that's saying the shvuah and he's accepting. He's chayiv for this. Mepi atzmoi l'kol shekain. If he himself is saying the shvuah out of his mouth and swearing, definitely he would be chayiv. So you don't learn it from Pekadon. It's just a simple kal v'chaimer. So therefore I say, according to the Chachamim, since the source is from a kal v'chaimer, so then the rule is dayay leba minadin liyais kinidin. Whenever you learn something out from a source with a kal v'chaimer, what you're learning out cannot be more than what the source has. And therefore, ma mushba mepi achedim, just like when you're accepting the shvuah from others. So bebezdin is shalei bebezdin loy. As we see clearly in the pasuk by Shavuos Eidos, that you're chayiv only if it's in the bezdin, and not if it's not in the bezdin, as it says in the pasuk v'shama kol ola, that it's in the bezdin. So af mushba mepi atzmai. So too, when one is swearing himself b'fnei bezdin in shalei b'fnei bezdin loy, that he's going to be chayiv only inside the bezdin and not outside of the bezdin. So Rav Papa is basically saying the argument here is: am I learning Shavuos Eidos from Shavuos HaPekadon or not? I don't even need that limud b'chlal. I'm just learning it with a kal v'chaimer. So now the students responded to Rav Papa that rejected their explanation, and they said to him, "Mi matzes amris? Can you say the lav b'doin mino mino pliki?" That the argument here, the explanation that the Rabbanan said, the student said, is not true. That it's an argument about how we learn out Shavuos Eidos from Shavuos HaPekadon. Could you say that that's not what the argument is about? And here, the Rabbanan, the students, brought Rav Papa from a Mishnah later, where we see that we do the opposite as well. Over here, the Gemara showed how you learn out Shavuos Eidos from Shavuos HaPekadon, but the opposite is also actually true. You learn out Shavuos HaPekadon from Shavuos Eidos. By Shavuos HaPekadon, what it says clearly in the pasuk is when someone swears himself, I don't have this deposit, then he's chayiv. It doesn't say ever by Shavuos HaPekadon that if he swears, he didn't swear himself actually, but he listens to a shvuah from someone else, that he would also be chayiv. That, as we'll see, is learned from Shavuos Eidos. And there, we clearly see that there's a machlokes about this. How much, to what extent you learn out. So what does it say in the Mishnah regarding the Shavuos HaPekadon? Here as well, there's a machlokes between Rab Meir and the Chachamim. Now, Vatnan, we learned in the Mishnah later, it says, Gabi Bekadon, regarding a deposit. So Shavuos HaPekadon, noiheges, so the Shavuos HaPekadon, when one swears falsely, regarding who this apply, ba'anoshim for men, ubenoshim, or for women, berechaikin, for one that's not a relative, or bekreivin for relatives, biksheirin for one that's kosher to say edus, or bipsulin, one that's not, that's possible for edus, bifnei bezdin, this is in front of the bezdin, and v'shalei bifnei bezdin, and not in front of the bezdin as well, but that's only if it's mipi atzmai. If he's swearing himself, then it doesn't matter if it's in front of bezdin or not in front of bezdin. Right. But if he didn't say it with his own mouth, but he's listening to the bezdin that's administering the shvuah to him, then he'll only be chayiv for this shvuah that he denied having this deposit if it was in the bezdin. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir. So here Rab Meir is similar to by Shavuos Eidos. Here as well he makes this distinction. And the Chachamim say bemi piatzmai, bemi pi achedim, whether he's saying the shvuah with his own mouth or he's just listening to the shvuah from others. It doesn't make a difference. Kivin shakofa boy, chayiv. If he denied having this deposit, he'll be chayiv. Doesn't matter if it's in front of bezdin or if it's not in front of the bezdin. So now, what's the explanation of their argument here? Mush bami piachedim. The fact that the person that swears, he didn't say the shvuah with his own mouth, but he's just accepting from others bipikad regarding a pikadain. Minolohu l'rabbanan dechayev. From where do the rabbanan know that he's chayev for this? As I mentioned, by pikadain, the Torah says only a case where the person swore himself. How do you know he's chayev even when he heard the shvuah from someone else? Now, on here you can't say any kal v'chaimer. Can't say, oh, it's a kal v'chaimer that he's chayev if he heard from others. There's no kal v'chaimer. Adarabah, maybe only if he says the shvuah himself he would be chayev. So, don't you think that it's because the Gomri law miyedus? It's because they learn it out from what it says in the Torah clearly by the shvuah when one denies a testimony. And there it says that that's even when you didn't say the shvuah with your own mouth. Now, what do the Chachamim say about this? So Vishma Mina, so we clearly see Bidoin Mina Mina Pligi. that what they're arguing is when I learn something out from another place. In this case, I'm learning Shavuos HaPekadim from Shavuos HaEdos. Do I completely apply the details from where I'm learning it out from or not? Right, so according to Rab Meir, I do. I apply, just like by Shavuos HaEdos, it must be in the Bezdin, so by Shavuos HaPekadim as well, when they're listening to the Shavuot from someone else, it's going to have to be in Bezdin, because they learn out completely Minah. And according to the Rabbanon, the Chachamim, I say that since I'm learning out the Shavuos HaPekadim, and I apply it here, it never has to be in the Bezdin. So I clearly see that they're arguing about this point, which is the extent of how much I learn out when I learn out from another place. So the Gemara says, Rav Papa responded, Me'ahi in. From this Mishnah you just quoted here, that you learn Shavuos HaPekadim from Shavuos HaEdos, you're right. There's a clear proof that this is what their argument is about. But my point was that from the previous point regarding Shavuos HaEdos, learning out Shavuos HaEdos from Shavuos HaPekadim, from there's no proof that this is what their argument is about. Going to the next thing in the Mishnah, the Mishnah said that by swearing falsely regarding testimony, so you're chayiv to bring a carbon, even if it was b'mezid. This is something that's unusual. Usually it's only b'shaygig. So the Gemara brings the source. From where do we know this? A Tan Rabbanan. The Braisa says that bekulon nemar behen v'nelam. By the other cases that the pasuk speaks here about the carbon of oila v'yedid, or a case where one swore falsely regarding other matters, not edus, or one that went into the Beis Hamikdash when he was tamei. There the pasuk says the term v'nelam, he forgot. But v'kan le'nema b'v'nelam. By one that swears about a testimony, it doesn't say that he forgot. Therefore, you chayev for the carbon, whether it's b'mezid or b'shegig. Then the Mishnah said, Val shigigasa imzaden edus, when there's something that he forgot, but he didn't forget about the edus, so he was b'mezid about the edus. So heichidami shigigasa imzaden edus. What is it that he forgot with this while he knows the edus itself, and he swore falsely about this? So Amar Rav Yudah Marav, ba'omer, it's a case of the person that says, Yedeya ani sheshvua zu asura. I know that swearing falsely here is forbidden. But I didn't know that I would be chayiv a carbon for this or not. He's not sure if he would be chayiv a carbon for this. That's what his shegig is. But he knows the edus, and he's swearing deliberately falsely about this, even though he knows the edus. Other Rishonim actually say that Gemara could have also simply said he knows the story, he knows the testimony, but he didn't know that it's also to deny and not to say the edus. He didn't know the whole Isser altogether. The last thing the Gemara brings up from what it said in the Mishnah, Ve'en chayovin al shigigasa geredise. One would not be chayiv to bring a carbon if it's a case of a shegig where the person completely forgot this edus, and therefore he's swearing that I don't know it. In that case where he completely forgot that edus, Rashi explained in the Mishnah, that's called an einus. He completely forgot it. Right? Yeah. Right. We learned this morning, correct. So the Gemara says, Leime, shall we say that Tanina l'derav Kahana v'derav Asi, that we have here a clear Mishnah that tells us the point that Rav Kahana and Rav Asi said earlier in the Masechta. What is this story of Rav Kahana and Rav Asi? So this is but Rav Kahana and Rav Asi, the Gemara said earlier, a few blocks before, that after their teacher Rav taught them, they came out later and they were arguing what Rav said in the class. And each one argued and swore, this is what Rav said. And the other one said, no, this is what Rav said. And then they came back to Rav. It turns out that one of them lied. And Rav said, don't worry, you weren't over on any Isser because you forgot, you didn't realize, and that's a Einus, and therefore you're not Chai for this. So the Gemara now is saying that this is clearly what our Mishnah is saying here, that when one forgot, there's no Isser in the Shvuah that he denied, that he doesn't know this testimony. So why were they even worried about this? And Rav had to calm them down about this. So the Gemara says, no, it's not the same thing. Because Avagav the Tanan, even though it says it here in the Mishnah regarding swearing falsely on a testimony that they know, or that they forgot about, so therefore it's not a problem, nevertheless, it was necessary for Rav to tell them that in their case as well, it's not a problem. Because I would think to say, as the Gemara pointed out before, regarding the false swearing on a testimony, here the Torah doesn't use the term vanilla, that they forgot. So therefore, here the shegig has to be similar to mezid. It can't be any kind of shegig. It has to be a case where they know the testimony and they're denying it. So that's similar to mezid. So that's only here by Shavuos HaEdos. But there, the story of Rav Kahana and Rav Asi is not about a testimony. It's about a subject. It's what that's in the category of Shavuos bitui, when they utter a Shavuah which could be false. So the chsiv v'nelam, there the Torah uses the term v'nelam. So I would say afilei shegigasa kolduhu. So that would include any kind of shegig, even this kind of shegig where they completely forgot and didn't realize that what they're swearing is false. Maybe that would also be an isser. Therefore Rav calmed them down and told them that the one that swore falsely, it's not an isser. If he forgot, it's considered to be an einus. Okay.